The first Super Mario Bros. Movie did something nobody in Hollywood fully expected. It worked, not just commercially, not just as a nosework exercise for people who grew up with the games, but as an actual film. A story with stakes and heart, and a world that felt genuinely alive on screen. It made over $1.3 billion at the global box office, and became the highest-grossing video game movie ever made. And the moment those numbers landed, everyone knew the same thing. This was not a one-time event. This was the beginning of something much larger. Movie 2 is coming, and based on everything that has surfaced so far, it is already shaping up to be a bigger, bolder, and more ambitious chapter than the first one. The Galaxy storyline is confirmed. The cast is returning. The world is expanding in a direction that changes the entire scale of what this franchise can be. But here is what we want to talk about today. Because Movie 2, as exciting as it is really just the setup. The real question, the one that has been sitting in the back of every Mario fan's mind since the first trailer dropped, is what comes after. What does Movie 3 look like? What does it need to do? And based on everything we know right now, what could it actually become? Today we are breaking down everything. The confirmed details, the credible rumors, the narrative logic hiding inside the games, and the theories that make the most sense given where this franchise is clearly heading. Movie 3 is not just another sequel. If Nintendo and Illumination play this correctly, it could be the chapter that turns a successful movie franchise into something genuinely legendary. Let us get into it. To understand where Movie 3 is going, you have to understand what Movie 1 actually built. Because the first film was very deliberately an origin story. Not just for Mario, but for the entire world. We met the Mushroom Kingdom for the first time through the eyes of someone who had never seen it before. We watched Mario go from a plumber in Brooklyn who nobody believed in to the hero that kingdom needed. Bowser was the threat, enormous and operatic and exactly what a first villain should be. The stakes were contained. The world had edges you could see, and that was entirely intentional. Origin stories and franchises are never really about the plot. They are about establishing the rules, teaching the audience what this world is, who these characters are, and what kind of story this is going to be. The first Mario movie did all of that with confidence. By the time the credits rolled, you understood the Mushroom Kingdom. You understood Mario and Luigi, and Peach, and Toad, and Donkey Kong. You understood that Bowser was dangerous, and that the power of the superstar was real, and that this world operated by its own internal logic. The foundation was in place. Movie 2 is where that foundation gets used, and based on what we know about the Galaxy storyline, it is being used in the most expansive way possible. Mario and the team are leaving the Mushroom Kingdom behind and heading into space, into galaxies and planets and cosmic forces that dwarf everything the first movie established. That is not a small creative decision. That is a franchise declaring that the walls it built in Movie 1 were never meant to be permanent. They were just the starting point. And now, the story is ready to grow past them. For anyone who has not played the Super Mario Galaxy games, here is why that matters. The Galaxy games are not just Mario in space. They represent the deepest, most emotionally ambitious storytelling Nintendo has ever put into a Mario title. The world of Super Mario Galaxy is built around a character named Rosalina, and her story is one of the most quietly heartbreaking things Nintendo has ever written into a game aimed at families. Rosalina is the guardian of the cosmos. She travels through space aboard a structure called the Comet Observatory, watching over small star-like creatures called Loomis, who she treats as her own children. Her backstory, told through a storybook hidden inside the game, explains that she was once a young girl from a world very much like the Mushroom Kingdom. She lost her mother. She built a family among the stars because the one she had was gone, and she has been traveling through the universe ever since, protecting the Lumas and watching over every galaxy, forever moving but never quite arriving anywhere she belongs. That is the emotional architecture the second movie is importing into this franchise, not just the visual language of space and planets and cosmic scale. The actual emotional depth of what the Galaxy games are about, loss and found family, and the particular loneliness of someone who has seen so much that ordinary life no longer fits them the way it used to. When you understand what Rosalina actually represents in the games, the decision to build Movie 2 around the Galaxy storyline stops feeling like a creative choice and starts feeling like an inevitability. This was always where the story needed to go. Now, what does all of this mean for Movie 3? It means the rules have changed permanently. Once you take Mario into space, once you establish that the universe of this franchise extends beyond the Mushroom Kingdom and into galaxies and cosmic forces, and characters like Rosalina, who operate on a completely different scale than Bowser ever did. You cannot put that back in the box. The audience has seen it now. They know the world is bigger, and movie 3 is going to have to honor that knowledge. The first movie could tell a contained story, because the audience did not yet know how large the world was. Movie 2 is showing them, which means movie 3 arrives into a franchise where the audience is already calibrated for scale, already expecting something bigger than what came before, already wondering what a threat looks like when the stakes are not one kingdom but an entire universe. That is a genuinely exciting creative challenge, because the Mario games have always understood something that not every franchise figures out. Scale alone is not what makes a story feel big. What makes a story feel big is the specificity of the characters living inside it. The biggest adventures in the Mario universe have always worked because of who was going through them, not just where they were happening. And if movie 3 understands that, if it takes the cosmic scale that movie 2 is building and fills it with characters the audience genuinely cares about, it has the potential to be something special. Super Mario Bros. Movie 3 does not have an official release date confirmed yet, but based on the production timeline of the first 2 films and Nintendo's clearly mapped out approach to this franchise, the 2027 window is the one that makes the most sense. Illumination and Nintendo have built something rare here, a franchise with genuine audience investment, an expanding world with real narrative logic behind it, and characters that people have loved for 40 years waiting to be brought to life. The question is not whether movie 3 will happen. The question is what it is going to do with everything movie 2 is about to put on the table. The answer to that starts with a villain, and not the one you might be expecting. Every great franchise has a moment where the villain situation gets complicated, where the primary threat that carried the story through the first chapter starts to feel like it has reached its natural ceiling. Bowser is one of the greatest villains in gaming history. Enormous, theatrical, operatic, and his menace and his heartbreak simultaneously. The first movie understood that perfectly. It gave him a love story and a power complex and a musical number, and made him genuinely compelling in a way that surprised people who expected nothing more than a large angry turtle with a castle. But movie 2 is already signaling that Bowser is not the central threat this time. He is in the story. He is not running it. And that single creative decision opens a door that movie 3 is going to have to walk through. Because if Bowser steps back in movie 2, something has to step forward. Something has to fill the space his absence creates. And the most interesting answer to that question, the one that makes the most narrative sense given everything movie 2 is setting up, is not a new character introduced from nowhere. It is his son. Bowser Jr. is confirmed to appear in the second movie. And if you know the Mario games, you understand immediately why that matters. Bowser Jr. is not simply a smaller version of his father. He is a completely distinct kind of threat, where Bowser operates through overwhelming force, through sheer scale and power, and the kind of presence that fills every room he enters. Bowser Jr. operates through cleverness, through unpredictability, through the particular dangerous energy of someone who has grown up in the shadow of the most feared villain in the kingdom, and has spent every single day of his life trying to figure out how to be taken as seriously. In the games, Bowser Jr. is resourceful in a way his father rarely needs to be. He builds things. He schemes, he pilots his own machines and leads his own missions and has a relationship with his father that is genuinely one of the more complicated emotional dynamics in the Mario universe. He wants Bowser's approval desperately. He also wants to prove he does not need it. Those two desires pull against each other constantly, and they make him unpredictable in a way that pure power never is. You can plan around strength. It is much harder to plan around someone whose motivations shift depending on which need is louder that day. For movie 3, Bowser Jr. as the central villain makes almost too much sense. Movie 2 ends with whatever consequences the Galaxy storyline produces. Bowser has been diminished, sidelined, or humiliated in some way significant enough that the sequel needed to move past him. Bowser Jr. has watched all of it. He has watched his father lose. He has watched Mario win again. And now he is standing in the wreckage of his father's legacy trying to figure out what comes next. That is not a villain waiting to be written. That is a villain who writes himself. The motivation writes itself too. Revenge is the obvious surface layer, but underneath revenge there is something more interesting. Bowser Jr. does not just want to defeat Mario. He wants to prove that he is more than his father's shadow, that the Koopa legacy belongs to him now, that whatever his father failed to accomplish, he will finish. That kind of villain is not just dangerous because of what he wants to do. He is dangerous because of what he needs to prove. And need is always more volatile than want. Now let us talk about Rosalina. Because if Bowser Jr. is the reason movie 3 has a compelling villain, Rosalina is the reason it has a soul. Her introduction in movie 2 is one of the most significant creative decisions this franchise has made since the first film cast Charlie Day as Luigi. Not because of what she brings to the second movie specifically, but because of what her presence in the franchise makes possible going forward. Rosalina is not a supporting character in the Mario universe. She is one of its most important figures, and once you bring her into a movie, once the audience meets her and understands who she is and what she carries, you cannot treat her as a one-film addition and move on. She is too large for that. Her story is too deep. For anyone who only knows Mario from the movies, here is what Rosalina actually is. She is the guardian of the entire cosmos. She travels through space aboard the Comet Observatory, watching over creatures called Lumas, small star-like beings who she has raised as her own children for longer than most civilizations have existed. She has been moving through the universe for what amounts to an eternity, watching galaxies form and collapse, protecting what she can, and carrying a loss so old it has become simply part of who she is. She was once a child. She had a home and a mother and an ordinary life. She lost it. And she built something new among the stars, because that was the only direction left to go. That backstory is not incidental to who Rosalina is. It is everything. It is the reason she is wise without being cold, powerful without being distant, and capable of genuine connection, despite having spent so long above the ordinary concerns of the world she watches over. She has loved people. She has lost them. She kept going anyway. And that specific emotional history is what makes her uniquely valuable to movie 3, because movie 3 is going to need an anchor. Something that keeps the cosmic scale from swallowing the human emotion at the center of the story. The galaxy storyline is enormous by definition. Planets, galaxies, forces that threaten entire universes. When your story operates at that size, the risk is always the same. The audience can see the scale but cannot feel it. The numbers become too large to hold emotionally. What prevents that from happening is a character who has already lived inside that scale and can translate it into something the audience can touch. Rosalina is that character. She has seen everything movie 3 is going to show the audience. She has lived through the kind of cosmic loss the movie is going to ask them to feel. She can stand in the middle of a universe-level threat and make it personal, because for her, everything that happens in the cosmos is personal. Every Luma, every galaxy, every world she has ever watched over. She is not observing the stakes of movie 3 from a distance. She is carrying them. Her role in movie 3 almost writes itself from there. She is the one who sees the threat coming before anyone else does. She is the one who knows what it means in a way that Mario and Peach and Luigi cannot yet understand. She becomes the guide, not in a way that removes the agency of the main characters, but in the way that someone who has lived through something terrible guides people who are about to face it for the first time. She has earned that role through everything the games established about her. And now movie 3 gets to put it on screen. There is one more dimension to Rosalina's potential in movie 3 that is worth sitting with: the Lumas. In the Galaxy games, Lumas are not simply cute creatures that follow Rosalina around. They are beings of transformation. When a Luma gives itself to a cause it believes in, it transforms. It becomes something new. A star, a galaxy, a planet. The Lumas are the reason the cosmos exists in the shape it does. They have been quietly building the universe that every Mario story takes place inside, through acts of selfless transformation that most of the characters in that universe never even know happened. If movie 3 brings the Lumas into the story in a meaningful way, if it lets the audience understand what they actually are and what they are capable of, it adds a layer to the cosmic stakes that no amount of action sequences can manufacture. The universe is not just a backdrop. It was built by love, by small acts of sacrifice that nobody noticed. That is the kind of idea that makes a franchise movie feel like it is about something real. And Rosalina is the only character who can deliver it, because she is the only one who was there when it happened. So as movie 3 begins to take shape in our understanding, the emotional architecture is becoming clear. Bowser Jr., as the villain, gives the story its conflict, a threat that is clever and personal, and driven by something more complicated than pure power. Rosalina as the guide gives the story its depth, a character who has already lived through everything the movie is going to ask its audience to feel, and can make the cosmic scale emotionally navigable. And Mario, as always, gives the story its heart, The ordinary person inside the extraordinary situation, finding a way through not because he is the most powerful figure in the room, but because he refuses to stop. That is a genuinely strong foundation for a third chapter. But a foundation is only as interesting as what gets built on top of it. And what movie 3 builds next is something Mario fans have been asking for since the first trailer of the original film dropped, and a very specific pair of characters were nowhere to be found. That changes now, because the team is about to get a lot more chaotic. The team that closes out movie 2 already contains multitudes: Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, and now Rosalina somewhere in the cosmic picture. That is a rich ensemble by any measure. But the Mario universe is not a small place. It has been generating characters for 40 years. And movie 3 is the moment the franchise has enough established trust with its audience to start bringing in the ones that change the energy of every room they walk into. Wario and Waluigi. Two characters whose absence from the movie universe has quietly become the longest-running joke in the Mario fan community. Every trailer, every casting announcement, every interview with the filmmakers, someone always asks, and the answer has always been some version of not yet. Movie 3 feels like the end of not yet. What makes Wario and Waluigi so valuable to this franchise is not simply that fans want them. It is what they bring tonally that nobody else in the current ensemble can provide. Wario is greed made physical. He is loud and chaotic and entirely motivated by self-interest in a way that is somehow completely lovable. He does not want to rule the world. He wants treasure. He wants to win. He wants whatever Mario has, not because he has a grand plan, but because Mario having things and Wario not having them is a situation Wario finds personally offensive. That is a fundamentally comedic motivation, and it works because it is so nakedly honest. Wario never pretends to be something he is not. He is exactly as awful as he appears, and completely unbothered by it. Waluigi is different energy entirely. Where Wario is chaos with a purpose, Waluigi is chaos with a grievance. He is the character who exists in a permanent state of being excluded, overlooked, and underestimated, which in a movie 3 that is dealing with cosmic stakes and universe-level threats makes him unexpectedly perfect. Because while everyone else is processing the enormity of what they are facing, Waluigi is furious that nobody remembered to tell him about it sooner. He is the character who makes the impossible feel absurd in the best possible way. And absurdity, handled correctly, is what keeps enormous stories from collapsing under their own weight. Princess Daisy deserves her own moment here too. Her connection to Luigi is one of the longest-standing relationships in the games, and Luigi, who the movies have used beautifully as emotional support without yet giving him a true arc of his own, is overdue. Movie 3 could be the film that finally gives Luigi a story that belongs entirely to him, not Luigi helping Mario. Not Luigi being scared and then brave. Luigi falling for someone who matches his energy completely. Someone as loud and competitive and unashamedly herself as Daisy is, while simultaneously facing the biggest challenge of his life. That is a character arc. That is the kind of storyline that makes audiences walk out of a third chapter feeling like they got more than they expected. The villain landscape of movie 3 needs to match the scale that movie 2 is establishing. And if the story continues moving through cosmic territory, the games offer one candidate who fits that requirement almost perfectly. Phantasma, the Bat King from Mario and Luigi Dream Team, is a villain who operates across dimensions and realities, whose power comes from a source that makes Bowser's ambitions look modest by comparison. He is not widely known outside dedicated game fans, which actually works in the movie's favor. A villain the audience does not already have expectations about is a villain who can genuinely surprise them. The alternative is something even more ambitious, an original cosmic threat, a force connected to the galaxy mythology that Rosalina carries with her. Something that explains why the Lumas have been quietly building the universe for as long as they have, what they were building it against. That kind of villain would not just be a threat to the Mushroom Kingdom, or even a handful of galaxies. It would be a threat to everything. And in a third chapter that needs to justify its scale, everything is exactly the right size. Nintendo is clearly building something larger than a movie trilogy. The evidence is not subtle. The first film planted the Donkey Kong world and then stepped back. Movie 2 is expanding into space and introducing Rosalina. Each chapter adds territory without fully exploring it, which is the signature move of a franchise that knows exactly how many stories it still wants to tell. Movie 3 is where that architecture becomes undeniable. where the audience stops seeing individual films and starts seeing the shape of something much larger connecting them all. The post-credit scene of movie 3 is the moment that makes that explicit. And the character it should introduce is Wario. Imagine Mario and the team returning home after whatever the galaxy adventure of movie 3 demands of them. The danger is over. The universe is safe. Everyone exhales. Then the scene cuts. A dark room somewhere. Piles of golden treasure catching the light. A hand reaches out and grabs a single gold coin. The camera pulls back slowly and there is Wario, sitting on a throne built entirely from things he has stolen, watching a news report about Mario saving the galaxy with an expression that sits somewhere between envy and scheming. He looks at the camera, he grins. That single image sets up everything movie 4 needs to be without explaining a word of it. Movie 3 arrives in 2027 into a franchise that has already proven it understands what it is doing. The world is bigger than the Mushroom Kingdom now. The stakes are cosmic, the characters are beloved, and the stories waiting inside 40 years of Mario games have barely been touched. If Illumination and Nintendo bring the same care to movie 3 that they brought to the first film, and build on everything movie 2 is about to establish, what lands in 2027 will not just be the best Mario movie yet, it will be the one that makes everything after it feel inevitable.